So, moving toward conclusion, when I wrote the book, which was in the middle of the last decade, the digital media were not so salient in my mind, but I tried to rethink the 5 Ds. I haven't forgotten the other 2, but we'll save that for later. What happens to discipline? I think discipline's tough nowadays. If you're very disciplined, you actually can master discipline real quickly. But there's so many diversions, and the whole digital world makes you jump from one thing to the other and try to get headlines and try to get shortcuts, and I think depth tends to lose the breadth. So the breadth exists. It's easier to get more information now than ever before, but the organization of it isn't done for you. There probably are already apps, as they say, or programs, which will purport to do the synthesizing for you. But I would hold on to my wallet because the notion that the person would synthesize the way you want to is not something you can count on. Web 2.0 and 3.0 open up tremendous opportunities for creation. And they're very exciting in the arts and in other spheres. But, and this is not in contradiction to what I said earlier about creativity, young Americans now in our studies, and these are middle-class kids, are quite risk-averse and career-risk. And this tends to narrow the spheres of creativity, unless they're given permission to do so, in which case they're fine. And that has to do with signals in the ambient culture that we've been talking about. An example I just thought of. A kid who never steps outside the path until he gets to Yale. He knows he's in Yale, and then goes to work for, let's say, Lehman Brothers, and then he's told, create any kind of instrument you can, which won't get you into the clinker, and will make us money quickly. That's where that fault line is between risk aversion and going to the danger zone. Respect and ethics I've already talked about. It's easy to be respectful when there's just a few people whom you know, but how do you treat people whom you've never met? And bullying used to occur in school, but it's very different when you come home now and you can be bullied 24/7 on a social network. It's very frightening. And the issue we've been working on, what we call our Good Play Project, what happens to ethics when, as soon as you enter the internet, you're part of a community of unknown size and unknown duration? Even if you're a 6-year-old in Club Penguin, if you create a digital trace, you never know where it's going to go, and who will treat it, and what will happen to it. You create a photo and post it, you never know what's going to happen to it. And nobody in the world, not even H.G. Wells or Jules Verne, ever envisioned a world like that. Summing up, that sounds good. This is Howard wearing the policymaker hat, not the MI scientist hat. 5 times that I decided to write about that I could have written about others. 3 of them are standard cognitive, but there's kind of order to them. You need to begin with disciplines in the way I spoke about them, both mastering ways of thinking, but also learning how to continue learning. And without discipline, you can't really synthesize in a sensible way. And unless you have a certain amount of discipline, innate discipline, and have done a certain amount of synthesis, even if you want to be creative, even if your parents give you a big C to wear on your chest, the chance of you doing anything that will affect anybody else is vanishingly small. So remember, outside the box is great, but if you haven't have a box, it's not very, very meaningful. And then the last 2 kinds of minds, which are still use of the minds, but not so much in an object-oriented way, but more on how do we relate to other human beings. Respect is just we give other people the benefit of the doubt and try to work with them cooperatively, collaboratively. And then as we get older, we begin to be able to think abstractly about ourselves as workers, because all of us have one or more work roles. And as we become citizens, sometimes legally, because we've been in the country 5 years and we've reached a certain age, but also planetary. Because if I'm sick and I go in an airplane to Asia and I bring a dread disease, I'm being a bad global citizen. And indeed, if I do a financial thing, which is like the butterfly with flapping his wings, it could cause a meltdown in Malaysia. That sounds like an Indian song. So the ethical issues are difficult ones. They're not ones for young kids. And yet, and on a school note, school is the first time that kids leave home. And while we can't talk about them as being workers or citizens yet, they do have work in school, and their schoolwork, and they are members of the community. And we can either start them off on an ethical or a non-ethical path. So while this isn't ethics with a capital E, it's the beginning of ethics. So I'd like to close with thoughts from two wise Americans. Many of you will have heard these before, but they haven't lost their relevance. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Intelligence plus character, that's the goal of true education." So we develop our intelligences, our minds, our thinking processes, but we also need to develop character in the sense of understanding others and working with them in a moral or ethical way. And then, this is Ralph Waldo Emerson. He actually, this is how he's depicted on the Barnes & Noble shopping bag. I realize that's going to be a collector's item soon in this Kindle iPad age, but you probably all know where Barnes & Noble is. And when Emerson said something similar, character is more important than intellect. I've spent my life studying intellect, and I make no apologies for it. It's fascinating. But at the end of the day, and this I will talk with the superintendents about, if we don't have people of good character, if we don't have a society which we're proud of because of the way human beings are, then all the intellect will come to naught. So you can learn more about the good work at the Toolkit or project website, and I think I may have this in the next slide as well. Yeah, you can also get more information from Project Zero Web or from my own website. I think that's it, Neil. Back to you.